Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Nicole and this is my Learning Corner. Summer is a great time for outdoor fun. Let's be safe while we're out there. Time to learn about vitamin D and keeping your skin healthy. What is vitamin D? Well, it's a fat-soluble vitamin that our body starts to create by going into the sun, soaking up the UVB rays, which you should always test before you start taking higher levels of vitamin D because they are fat soluble. When you consume fat soluble vitamins, they get stored in your body, not excreted like water soluble vitamins. Therefore, they can become toxic if you do not monitor them. Just be advised. Vitamin D production in the human body is a multi-step metabolic process. It begins in the skin when we get exposed to UVB rays from the sunlight. It uses a type of cholesterol. Then the liver and the kidneys also are used to transform inactive vitamin D into active vitamin D. For simplicity reasons, we're only going to talk about active vitamin D and helping the skin. So how does active vitamin D help the skin? Well, as you can see there, it helps with the skin barrier. So it's essential for maintaining our skin's barrier. Deficiency leads to dry, flaky skin and increases susceptibility to infections. Wound healing. It promotes wound healing by regulating cell growth and differentiation. A deficiency can slow down our healing process. Skin cancer risk. Adequate vitamin D levels are associated with lower risks of certain types of skin cancer, including melanoma. Vitamin D helps regulate cell growth and may inhibit the proliferation of cancer cells. Well, how can it help you look younger? Well, science says photoaging, right? So vitamin D deficiency exacerbates the effects of photoaging, leading to premature wrinkles, age spots, and loss of skin elasticity. So if you want to look younger, make sure to get your vitamin D checked and make sure it's at a healthy level. What are some tips that we should go through? Well, you can read them right there. So basically, cover up your skin with hats and pants and shirts and sunglasses. Drink lots of water. Avoid caffeine and alcohol. Avoid the peak hours of the skin, right? So put up an umbrella. Don't go out in the sun, usually between about noon and 2, but 10 and 4 for those who burn quite easily. Use zinc oxide for sunscreen. Zinc oxide is not only safe for us because it's a mineral-based sunscreen, but it's also safe for the environment. It protects against the UVA and the UVB rays. It's really good for sensitive skin, and it really does help. So kids, parents alike, definitely use zinc oxide. I'm all for that. Check the UV index, right? So here in Florida, the UV index in the summertime can be extreme. So make sure you check and use the guidelines that are out there. All right, regular skin checks. It's important to monitor our skin. You can take pictures and just do it that way for a little bit, but if you're really concerned, make sure you get those spots checked out by your practitioner. For those of you who want to learn a little bit more, keep on listening. So vitamin D production and metabolism are influenced by several genetic single nucleotide polymorphisms. Those are called SNPs. Everybody's heard about them, and they can affect various aspects of vitamin D biology, including synthesis, transportation, and function of the receptor. Here are some of the key genetic SNPs associated with vitamin D production and metabolism. So it might not mean a lot to you up there, but I'm just going to go through kind of what it does, right? So the vitamin D receptor gene, VDR, it influences, there's 4 different types of those, by the way, that we already know about in science. It influences activity of the vitamin D receptor associated with bone mineral density and vitamin D levels, linked to various health outcomes related to vitamin D, and bone mineral density and vitamin D levels. So these are just with that first one listed there, the VDR gene. Then we can jump to the next one. This SNP is associated and involved with hydroxylation of vitamin D. So that's just a fancy word of saying the transition or almost like if you'd consider methylation, hydroxylation, it's from one form to another. Then we jump to the GC gene, right, group specific component. And this one, it helps, there's two SNPs that they look at, and it helps with transportation of vitamin D in the blood and influences vitamin D level. The next SNP, the CYP27B1 gene, this one is associated with an enzyme that converts the 25-OH vitamin D to the active form, right? So remember how we talked back earlier in the slides how it went from the UVB rays hitting the skin, then activating a certain cholesterol, then going through the liver and the kidney, right? So there's multiple steps in the body. That's why you can't correlate that going out in the sun for everybody is going to make active D levels, and thus some people having a variant in those areas because we have genetic SNPs that can have variations, right? So that can change how much or if things get converted, or if they get broken down, or if they produce more or less, essentially. So these genes that we're talking about here, we test in office, and we'll get to that in a minute. So CYP24A1 gene, so this is associated with the enzyme that degrades. So the other one above, the B1 gene, converts to an active form. This one degrades and regulates levels. So if you have too much of the active form, this one goes in and breaks it down, right, and degrades it or takes it out of active form into an inactive form. Then we jump to the DHCR7 gene. This SNP is associated with an enzyme that involves in the synthesis of cholesterol and vitamin D. Remember, cholesterol is fat soluble, vitamin D is fat soluble, so the synthesis kind of is similar in all of these processes, but very different in what it uses and what enzymes it uses and what cofactors, which that's where it gets messy, so I'm trying to keep it very simple for you. These SNPs influence vitamin D levels and relate health outcomes, but it's important that you know the effects of these genetic variations are complex and may interact with our environment, such as sunlight exposure and diet. So it's important to understand and get tested. So you get tested for vitamin D levels, and let's say you're chronically low or chronically high, or whatever the variant is. Those are the most typical, and you can never get your pulse on it. So that's why genetic testing would be helpful to say, oh, you're not synthesizing it, right? So we need to make sure you get it in more of a supplementation form. Or, wow, you can't break it down, so we have to not supplement you or watch you a little bit closer to see your D status. So I hope that helps, and I hope you did learn something here. Obviously, questions can always be directed right at me, and I'll give you my information here at the end. But if you want to share it with somebody who might need to know it, here's my information. I appreciate your time. We are on YouTube, Facebook, email, and basically, I'm always open to helping patients. I'm always open to doing testing for genetics. Also, common labs, comprehensive labs, functional blood testing. If you want to become a patient, or if you know somebody that really needs a doctor to turn to, we are fully licensed and can accept patients in Minnesota and Florida here. My business, again, is Perfect Touch Massage and Chiropractic. There is my website. My email is info@ptbodytherapy.com. Share, like, get people to know these informational things, because it's very important and just fun to know. There are options and there are answers, and they don't have to be difficult. Thanks for joining me at the Learning Corner.